Year 3, this week is where things get hard. Sorry. This week we're going to be looking at drawing not just one eye on its own, but a pair. And the most important thing with drawing a pair of eyes is that your eyes need to have symmetry. So symmetry is something that we spoke a little bit about last term. And basically when we're drawing eyes or any face or even any part of the face, you need to imagine that you've drawn a line down the middle of the face. And if you folded it in half, they'd be exactly the same. That's what this line of symmetry is, that both sides are the same but reflected. The thing with eyes though, and faces in general, is that they're not perfect. They're not perfect. So if they're not perfectly matching eyes, if they don't match in your drawings, it doesn't really matter because they don't usually match in real life anyway. We want to get them similar and close to looking like they're the same, but they're never going to perfectly match. So don't stress if they don't perfectly match. We just want them to look like they belong together. I think I said it to some students last year. When we're drawing eyes in particular, they're like siblings. They're like two brothers that look kind of the same or two sisters that look the same. They're never twins. They never perfectly match. Even if you look at my eyebrows, when you first look at them, they look like they might be the same, but they're actually not. This one's a little bit shorter and a little bit higher. This one's a little bit longer and it goes a little bit lower. So it doesn't really matter if they don't match perfectly. We just want them to look really similar and close, okay? I'm going to show you in just a moment how I draw two eyes together. I don't draw one eye and then the other eye. And I actually think that this is really important for making my eyes similar. What I actually do when I draw my eyes to make sure that they're the same size and shape and all of those things is that I actually draw them like this. I draw step one, step two, step two. So I start by drawing the iris, draw the iris for the other eye. Do my arch, do my arch, do my arch, do my arch. Pupil, eyebrows, eyelashes. I do it on each eye at the same time. That really helps me to make sure that my eyes look the same, or at least as similar as I can make them. The other thing you've got to remember when you draw eyes, and we're going to look really closely at my eyes here, is that your tear duct, this little bit here, is in the middle. That comes back to that symmetry. If you're drawing a tear duct over here and one here, they're not symmetrical. They're actually just more like a copy, like a slide. We want them to reflect. So your tear ducts, both tear ducts, go inside right next to your nose. That's important to remember. All right, I'm going to show you how I do it. Let's see how we go. Okay, year 3. So like I explained, I'm going to draw two eyes now. And I'm going to do each step of each eye. So I'm not going to draw one eye first and then do the other one. I'm going to do step one, step two, step two. So just like last week, what I'm starting with is my iris. So I'm going to start with two irises and I'm still drawing nice and sketchy, nice and light. I'm going to draw my iris on the other side and I'm going to do my best to try and make sure that these are about the same size. And I can always come back to the other side and make a little adjustment and change it if I need to as I go. But like I said to you last week, drawing lightly really helps with this because it's so much easier to make changes if you have drawn it lightly. All right, so pretty happy with that. Nice. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, same as last week, is I'm going to do those arches over the top. And I like to have the arches cross through the iris a little bit because the iris fills up so much space in our eye that we can't very often actually see all of it. I'm going to try and make the other side as symmetrical as I can. So remember, I want to be able to fold this in half and basically have them be the same or as similar as I can make them. So my lines, they look like they're nice and even. Nice and even. I think that's pretty good. Maybe make this one a little bit lower. Then I'm going to add my tear duct. And like I showed you before, this goes in the middle. Okay, it's right next to your nose on both eyes. These reflect each other. We don't have one tear duct in the middle and one over here. So our little tear ducts here. Nice, nice, nice. Then I'm going to do the eyelid at the bottom on both sides. So see how I'm going back and forth between the two eyes? I'm not just finishing one eye off and then having another one that's not very similar. If you've got things that are completely wrong, like I just had then, you can rub out as you go. But remember that last step like I showed you last week, where you can rub things out and go over your lines and make them a lot darker? That will help here too. That little bit at the edge where you can see a little bit of pink in our eye. And then I'm going to start doing the eyelids. Now I move my piece of paper around a lot when I'm doing this so that I can make sure things are on the right angle. So I'm sorry if it makes it a little bit difficult to see it sometimes. But we all have our weird little things we do when we're drawing. This is one of mine. I move my paper around a lot. So my eyelids there, trying to make them nice and even again. Pretty happy with that so far. Beautiful. Okay, next thing, I'm going to add in my my pupil, sorry. Try and make those nice and even. Ooh, good. And then I like to just put a little mark under here. You don't have to do that. It's just because I've got bags under my eyes. That's why I do those bits. Then, just like last week, I'm going to go over all these lines that I've done. Make them all a little bit darker and a little bit more clear which ones I'm keeping. Darken, 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 darken. Then I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm pretty happy with how even these are. Now, like I said, they're never, ever, ever in a million years going to be perfect. They're never going to be perfectly symmetrical or perfectly matching. That's just what drawing's like, unfortunately. Nothing's ever perfect. When we do things when we're people, we just do our best. So now that I've got those nice and even, I'm going to grab my rubber and just lightly rub out anything I don't really want to keep. But I'm pretty happy with those overall. So now I'm going to go in and shade those pupils a little bit darker so they really stand out. Now when I'm practicing drawing things like this, I like to only use grey lead, but you can add in some colour if you want. I'm going to have a go with doing some shading as well. So those are my two eyes. Going to make this one a bit darker. So I've left a lot of like really scratchy lines there, and I haven't done my eyelashes yet. That's because basically no matter what you do with the eyes, you want your eyelashes to be the absolute last thing so that you don't accidentally rub them away or smudge them or anything like that. So I'm going to add some shading into these eyes. So when I'm shading, I'm thinking about what is light and what is dark. You can have a go doing this as well, but if you don't feel comfortable doing it or you're not quite ready, don't stress. So when we shade, we want it to go from light to dark really smoothly. Shading is not like coloring. Shading is using one pencil, like a grey lid, to go from dark to really, really, really light. And they blend together super nicely. And you can see the difference with the dark to light. So it transitions really smoothly from light to dark and dark to light. So we're going to apply this to our eyes. So normally under our eyes have a little bit of darkness to them. And I just like to use my finger to give it a bit of a smudge. I'm just going to do one so you can see the difference. Little bit of a smudge, and it just helps make it a little bit more realistic and a little bit more 3D. Probably a little bit dark over there, but that's okay. I can rub it out a little bit. And I'm going to do the same with my eyelid. So my eyelid, because it goes into my head, is usually probably one of the darkest places in the eye. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to give it a bit of a smudgy smudge. And if you smudge it and you get it somewhere like that you don't want it, like I have here, you can just very gently get your rubber and rub those bits out. Now, I don't really mind that I've got some shading in my iris accidentally, because I'm going to actually shade that bit as well. So just going to finish my eyelid, make it a little bit darker in there, because like I said, that's usually the darkest bit. Rub out my oopsies. There we go. And then I'm going to shade the iris as well. So I'm just going to make the pupil a little bit darker. A little bit darker. And then we actually usually have quite a few lines in our iris. So I like to make some marks in there that all point to the middle, so that go from the outside in. And I do these super, 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 super lightly. And these are just to add a little bit of texture. Then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lightly shade it. And remember, I want my iris to be lighter than my pupil, because that pupil is basically black and I don't want it to blend in with my iris. And like you can see that I'm doing, you can go back and make things darker. You can grab your rubber and make things lighter. If you do a mistake, you can rub it out. No stress whatsoever. Look at that. So here you can see the difference. Now I'm going to add in my hair. So I'm going to do my eyelashes and my eyebrows. Now remember, eyelashes always flick out away from your nose. So your bottom ones on this eye go out like that, pointing in this direction. Your upper ones go like this, pointing out in that direction. On this eye, they go this way. And down the bottom, they go that way. Lucky last step, I'm going to add in some eyebrows. So just like I did last week, I like to mark that it goes in line with my tear duct, roughly. I'm going to mark the start of my eyebrow and the end of my eyebrow, and they should roughly match to the size of my eyes. So now I'm going to draw that bottom line, and I'm going to try and make it a bit curvier than I did last week. Last week's one was a bit flat for my liking. Going to just rub right up to that so my shading's in there. And then I'm going to do the same thing as I did last week. I'm just going to very gently use lots of little lines to create those eyebrows. Your eyebrows are not one big block or rectangle, remember. That line that I drew is just to guide me, to tell me what shape to put my little hairs as. Your eyebrow's not one big block with lines in it. It's only lines. It's lots of little hairs that make up one shape altogether. And the edges aren't straight lines and they're not smooth. They're little hairs. So that's what it should look like. I don't know why, but this way is easier for me on that eyebrow. Like I said, I am strange sometimes and I move my paper around a lot when I draw. But I guess that's one of the good things about having a piece of paper, is that it's easy to move. All right, pretty happy. Miss Emily, done. Okay, that's how I do it. As I said, there's no real right or wrong way to do it. This is just one way that I like to do it, and I find that it helps me to make things look as similar as I can make them. Up to you if you do the same thing, but the main thing is that we want those eyes to be the same size and the same shape as much as we can. And that technique that I use, doing one step at a time on each eye, personally for me, I find really helps for me to do that. Have a go doing it that way. And if that doesn't suit you, you can experiment with other ways to do it. Like I said to you last week, drawing is all about practice. You don't just draw one eye and you're like, done, perfect, I'm amazing, this is all I need to do. Drawing is like anything. The only way to improve is to practice. So if you want to go crazy and draw 100 million eyes, do it, please, and send me all of them. I love seeing what you guys are doing, and I hope that you're enjoying my comments and my videos and all those things. Let me know how you go. Bye.